you guys could be anywhere, right? I don't know, maybe some of you are required to be in classes, and in that case, shouts to your teacher, and I hope this will be relatively painless. Yeah, my name is Kaveh Akbar. Pronouns are he, him, or anything respectful. I'm really glad to be here. Yeah, Fongs is all it takes. If you ever want me to like come to your kid's birthday party or whatever, Fongs is what it takes. Can you all hear me okay? Am I projecting sufficiently? I've been told I have a very loud and nasal voice, and so hopefully, like if I'm just talking to you like 3 feet away, my spouse is always like, right here. I'm like, I'm talking normally. But it works out well for this. Yeah, so I'm just gonna read briefly from my novel, which Mark said nice things about. It's called Martyr with an exclamation point, so it's like Martyr, you know? Which is, I'm still sort of figuring out how to say if I'm supposed to be like, it's called Martyr, or if I'm supposed to be like, it's Martyr, you know? But I'm gonna read, I was looking through your guys' literary journal. It's called Expressions, DMACC Literary Magazine, and they were just, I assume they were free, I might have asked but they were back there, and I like this poem by Catherine Nichol, who, I don't know, but one imagines that Catherine is a student here. It's called Ballerina. It's a nice little illustration too. Sorry, I had to rip up a piece of the page to put my thumb out because I'm an 8-year-old. But yeah, this poem is called Ballerina. The world hits your eyes, bright in an instant. The music beginning the familiar melody. Begin to spin as you always have. Face your reflection, your passé tight, arms perfect fifth. The lipstick is weathered. The years show in your faded color, your chipped hands, yet you spin regardless. Your point remains strong, smile never moving. The spring against your ankles keeps you here. If you knew any better, you'd want so much more. If only you knew. So you continue to spin. The old melody, all you know. It's Ballerina by Catherine Nichol. Yeah, clap for Catherine. You guys should pick up a copy of this. They have a couple issues out there, so if you guys, I'm gonna take this home with me and read the rest. I wrote a novel. You don't need to know anything. I'm just gonna read just the first couple pages, and then maybe we can talk about it. I'm really a poet, by the way. Like, I came up as a poet. My first 2 books are poetry. I have like 57 degrees in poetry and zero degrees in fiction or thinking about fiction. And so I'm truly just like wearing fiction drag. But I did write a book, and I'm gonna read to you just the first couple pages of it. Maybe it was that Cyrus had done the wrong drugs in the right order, or the right drugs in the wrong order. But when God finally spoke back to him after 27 years of silence, what Cyrus wanted more than anything else was a do-over, clarification. Lying on his mattress that smelled like piss and Febreze, in his bedroom that smelled like piss and Febreze, Cyrus stared up at the room's single light bulb, willing it to blink again, willing God to confirm that the bulb's flicker had been a divine action and not just the old apartment's trashy wiring. Flash it on and off, Cyrus had been thinking, not for the first time in his life. Just a little wink and I'll sell all my shit and buy a camel. I'll start over. All his shit at that moment amounted to a pile of soiled laundry and a stack of books borrowed from various libraries and never returned. Poetry and biographies. To the Lighthouse, My Uncle Napoleon. Never mind all that though. Cyrus meant it. Why should the Prophet Muhammad get a whole visit from an archangel? Why should Saul get to see the literal light of heaven on the road to Damascus? Of course, it would be easy to establish such bedrock faith after clear-cut revelation. How was it fair to celebrate those guys for faith that wasn't faith at all, that was just obedience to what they plainly observed to be true? And what sense did it make to punish the rest of humanity, who had never been privy to such explicit revelation? To make everyone else lurch from crisis to crisis, desperately alone. But then it happened for Cyrus too, right there in that ratty Indiana bedroom. He asked God to reveal himself, herself, themself, itself, whatever. He asked with all the earnestness at his disposal, which was troves. If every relationship was a series of advances and retreats, Cyrus was almost never the retreater, sharing everything important about himself at a word, a smile, with a shrug as if to say, those are just facts. Why should I be ashamed? He'd lain there on the bare mattress on the hardwood floor, letting his cigarette ash on his bare stomach like some sulky prince, thinking, turn the lights on and off, Lord, and I'll buy a donkey. I promise I'll buy a camel and ride him to Medina, to Gethsemane, wherever. Just flash the lights and I'll figure it out. I promise. He was thinking this, and then something happened. The light bulb flickered, or maybe it got brighter, like a camera's flash going off across the street. Just a fraction of a second like that. And then it was back to normal. Just a regular yellow bulb. Cyrus tried to recount the drugs he'd done that day. The standard bouquet of booze, weed, cigarettes, Klonopin, Adderall, variously. He'd had a couple Percocets left, but he'd been saving them for later that evening. None of what he'd taken was exotic. Nothing that would make him out and out hallucinate. He felt pretty sober, in fact, relative to his baseline. He wondered if it had maybe been the sheer weight of his wanting, or his watching, that strained his eyes till they saw what they'd wanted to see. He wondered if maybe that was how God worked now in the new world. Tired of interventionist pyrotechnics like burning bushes and locust plagues, maybe God now worked through the tired eyes of drunk Iranians in the American Midwest, through CVS handles of bourbon and little pink pills with G31 written on their side. Cyrus took a pull from the giant plastic Old Crow bottle. The whiskey did, for him, what a bedside table did for normal people. It was always at the head of his mattress, holding what was essential to him in place. It lifted him daily from the same sleep it eventually set him into. Lying there, reflecting on the possible miracle he just experienced, Cyrus asked God to do it again. Confirmation, like typing your password in twice to a web browser. Surely if the all-knowing creator of the universe had wanted to reveal themselves to Cyrus, there'd be no ambiguity. Cyrus stared at the ceiling light, which in the fog of his cigarette smoke looked like a watery moon, and waited for it to happen again. But it didn't. Whatever sliver of a flicker he had or hadn't perceived didn't come back. And so, lying there in the stuffy haze of relative sobriety, itself a kind of high, amidst the underwear and cans and dried piss and empty orange pill bottles and half-read books held open against the hardwood, breaking their spines to face away, Cyrus had a decision to make.
Open it up to Q&A.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, joys, raptures, sorrows.
Can I start actually? I was just going to offer, we have a lot of writing students in here.
Yeah.
Lit students as well. And I know that your process for starting this book as a, you haven't written fiction much.
Right.
You said you went through like kind of a boot camp of like novels and movies.
Yeah.
Do you have some that you, like, not the whole category, not the whole litany, but like some titles that stuck to you that were like, those are really influential, beneficial,
Sure.
in terms of film or books?
Sure. So Mark is referencing, I mean, again, I came up as a poet, and I've only ever thought of myself as a poet. And I had this story about a young man, an addict, and this artist that he meets that I wanted to tell, and poetry couldn't really accommodate it, or at least my poetry couldn't really accommodate it. Maybe a more talented poet, would be able to, put it into a narrative like the Aeneid or something like that. But for me, I couldn't get narrative into that form, and so I started trying to write fiction, which I had never done before in any serious way. And so what Mark is referencing, I think we spoke about this last time, is while I was writing this book, I was also reading 2 novels a week and watching a movie a day, just sort of like, foie gras ducking narrative into myself, you know what I mean? Like just the funnel in my mouth, like pouring narrative in, just trying to figure out how people tell stories, right? How people get their characters to walk through doorways and onto airplanes and have conversations, because you don't really do that as much in poetry, right? Like you don't have to say like, oh, this is how the person got the money to pick up the check, right? Whereas fiction, the reader needs to know that, right? Or often the reader needs to know that. And what I found in that reading and